Hey everyone, what up? Mad Kaiser here, and welcome to my 6th episode of my Ninja Gaiden review marathon, with a very obscure and interesting title, that being Ninja Gaiden Dragon Sword. Now, Tomonobu Itagaki was a famed video game developer, with hits like of course Dead Alive and Ninja Gaiden, but also he was both a loving father and his kids, most notably his daughter, really wanted to play one of his games, which is very touching, but also very funny, when other creators known for making violent, hardcore, also made media for children, let alone their children specifically. And given on how the Nintendo DS was a hot item, he, as well as Hayashi and as well as Team Ninja, teamed up to make a game that aimed not only for both his children, but also for a more broader audience. Hence why they toned down the gore and violence and other aspects that his games were known for. Ninja Gaiden Dragon Sword was released exclusively on the Nintendo DS in March 20th, 2008 in Japan, and the rest in March 25th in both America and then later in June for Europe, with it selling a lifetime of 340,000 units, and garnering strong reviews with an 83 on Metacritic, with many of its fans and critics praising for its very impressive level of graphics, as well as even translating the core gameplay of the mainline titles but on a handheld, and even winning things like say IGN's best action game for the DS in 2008. While it did also garner some criticism for its shorter runtime and easier difficulty. But with that said, how does this spin-off compare to its more console mainline counterparts? Well, for this review, we're going to be playing this game by different means, hence why the presentation for this may look a little bit off to you. But with that said, let's find some Dark Dragon Stones, perform some Nimpo, and grab our Dragon Sword once more as we head straight into Ninja Gaiden Dragon Sword. So the story takes place after Ninja Gaiden 1, with it being 6 months. Don't you even think about it. After the infamous Dark Dragon Blade incident, with the Hayabusa village being rebuilt and living in peace. Though, enjoy, cause that's not gonna last a bit. We see our main hero, Ryu Hayabusa, train his new apprentice, and the new Dragon Shrine Maiden, that being Momiji.
Hello? Hey, I'm in the wrong Springfield.
And fun fact, yes, this game is where Momiji makes her debut in the entire series. Which may sound crazy, but hey, there have been some crazier things. However, she gets then ambushed and captured by the Black Spider clan, led by their evil witch, Obaba, who has joined forces with the ancient greater fiends of Vigor, that being Ishtaros, with the plans to acquire ultimate power, and also, you guessed it, taking over the world.
Of course!
So, Ryu, after surviving an ambush from them, goes in pursuit, only to find him traveling to familiar places, like Tyrone, with familiar foes back from the dead, and they each house what's called a Dark Dragon Stone, crystals that harness the power of the Dark Dragon, and if all 8 are gathered, they would surpass even the Dark Dragon Blade, and create chaos and destruction. So with that, Ryu has to gather the 8 Dark Dragon Balls in order to summon the powerful Dragon Shenron and— oh wait, wrong series, my bad. I mean collect these Dark Dragon Stones and keep them from evil, but also find and save Momiji. And that's the actual story, and to be honest, while it's not anything like groundbreaking or high art, it's simple as well as both comprehensible and very cohesive, where it builds upon and expands the lore of the actual series, and really doubles down on the personal stakes with Ryu, with now having to save Momiji and also the village, as well as his very own friends, being active and also under attack. So the threat does feel legitimate here. It's also got some really strong writing for him as well, And while his portrayal in this one can come across very talkative, much like his Ninja Gaiden 3 variant, which many found very contentious, here I think it's a lot more appropriate here, as it fits with his character and it shows him that he's more concerned about his friends and family, and he does get pushed into his overall limit. He still has some epic moments here, and while Ninja Gaiden 2 still has my favorite version of the character, I don't mind this version either. As for Momiji, she's more of a kind spirit compared to the likes of, say, Rachel and Sonia, and while she does start off as a damsel, she does get a really cool moment and grows to be a stronger person, and she's overall a great addition to the series. The other side characters in this game are all fantastic and very fun to interact with, making the village something worth fighting for. And Moonmaster is always dope, as he's the best side character in the entire series. Now as for the villains, Obaba herself is very devious, cruel, and just downright hateable. She's really vicious and takes the pleasure of both torturing Momiji and even her own subjects. And the same can be said for Ishtaros, who has her very own evil personality and is more of a character here than, say, being relegated to just an optional boss fight in very hard mode from Ninja Gaiden 1 Black and Sigma. There's a very touching thing at the end, and overall, it makes the story really endearing. And while there's only like a little voice acting, and it's all in Japanese no less, it still gives the story some life overall to the characters. Now we get on to the graphics, and I have to say, this game really looks good, especially for an early DS title, with the models being rendered nicely here, and it being a 3D game, with character models being detailed, and as well as environments that look really nice, even when this game is clearly pushing the console's limitations. What I find really impressive, however, would have to be both the locations and enemies looking very faithful to the console counterparts. The fixed camera angles you do get on screen do add a little bit of personality, and the full 3D camera during boss fights really shows on how great these models really are, especially towards bosses. However, the one thing to note is that the cutscenes are presented in this 2D hand-drawn comic-like cutscenes, and I think it really looks great and holds up well for this kind of game. As for performance, this game actually runs really good on this emulator here. Overall, not much to say other than that this game really is a great looking DS game. Now we get on to the meat of the game. So Dragon Sword plays similar to its console counterparts, with its core gameplay from normal to heavy attacks, blocking, dodging, techniques, using projectiles and Nimpo. Though there are a few changes. Obviously the main control here being centered on using the stylus, or in this case, using the finger. While you do control only the sword and no other weapons, the combat itself feels very snappy and responsive enough to compensate. And when you do factor in the things like scrolls that give you new techniques, that alone increases the combo potential in this, like doing multiple flying swallows, parrying enemy projectiles, and of course, the famous Izuna drop. Even in a DS game, it never gets old. The other change, however, would have to be the Nimpo, where you can cycle between different elements, including a brand new one that gives you blue essence to heal, and also to compensate for the lack of healing items, let alone items in general. Though how you activate it is different, as you need to draw the symbol, and if you do it in time, and you perform it well, you get an amazing effect here, as the effects of each Nimpo look sick as hell. Moving on, the enemies in this are comprised of things like the Black Spider Ninjas you fight in 2, as well as the Fiends you fight in 1, which of course does include the return of the Ghostfish. And yep, a lot of these do function like their console counterparts. In fact, most of the boss roster in this game feature bosses from Ninja Gaiden 1, with a few coming from Ninja Gaiden 2 specifically. And dare say, for positive, a lot of these bosses are actually good here, as there's no usual stinker here. Overall, the gameplay in this one is great, and even on par with the series. Except for one problem however, and that's the difficulty. Because playing this on normal is mostly easy, as some of the enemies don't feel too aggressive, within some exceptions, as you'll be able to likely combo and style them easily. And while of course it does make for some cool combos, it does kinda go against the whole point of Ninja Gaiden. And I can see that was kinda intent for Itagaki-san, especially for making it for his kids, but still, it kinda sucks. And while I did give praise for the bosses being designed great, majority of them can also be taken down easily, with flying swallow spams or even using ultimate techniques. Except for the final boss, which is easily the hardest in the actual game. And while I did say that the gameplay was easy, that's only dependent on how good your stylus or your finger is, cause if you screw up, you're gonna suffer a lot with many command grabs over and over, and it sucks every single time that happens. But outside of that, there's not much to comment on what's wrong, maybe on how you perform reverse wind in this, but overall, the gameplay is actually pretty good, like really impressive. Now we get on to the level design and the rest of the gameplay. For movement and general physics, they're pretty solid. As for the levels, it's mostly a linear affair going through side-scroller dungeons and various puzzles, even if there's some bridges that you can easily fall off. As for puzzles, I do like the ones that require various ninpo, like the wind to power fans or the ones that to clear out fires or even fire up using torches. But the ones that just involve things like red light, blue light is whatever. As for exploration, it's pretty much fine, with the village being just a general hub world, though I'm not a fan of some levels having these boulders to avoid or spikes. Now we get on to the music, and yeah, it's pretty good, even if it is mostly just reused tracks from both Ninja Gaiden 1 and 2, but it overall sets the mood and tone nicely for what they go for. But the original music, what little of it there is still really good. Now as for content, there's not a whole lot other than just playing the game again but on a higher difficulty, collecting these wood amulets, doing these ninja trials in the Fiend Realm, and looking at Muramasa's archives. But there's also a neat thing here, where if you actually beat the dragon boss in the tutorial level as Momiji, where you unlock Rin. That basically is just Momiji, except not really, as she'll even use the same voice, though unlocking her grants you Master Konichi, which is basically the same as normal mode. The only difference in playstyle would have to be is that you don't get the Izuna drop, so you have to buy that instead, which is neat, I guess? Beating this game would take you around, say, 5 hours, so to speak, which is very short, and that's often the criticism that this game gets. But if you complete it, you can double that playtime. So with that, how is Ninja Gaiden Dragon Sword? Overall, I was actually surprised by this. From the visuals to the touching story to its gameplay, and it feeling like a true Ninja Gaiden title, and given on how this game was meant for Itagaki's kids, it's really touching, especially with his recent passing. And while the flaws do hinder it, especially on it being on the easy side, it's still an enjoyable experience. Hell, I'm even surprised that they didn't decide to do a remake of this on consoles, as they would have the assets to make this. But nevertheless, I'm giving Ninja Gaiden Dragon Sword 4 Momijis out of 5. And, well, I hope you guys are happy for telling me to play this, so there you are. But with that said, we reached the end point, and entered to the year of the ninja phase, with just 3 last games on the belt. Join us next time, as we head back into Ninja Gaiden 2 for one last round, but with better, gorier, and more confusing stuff, with Ninja Gaiden 2 Black. Anyway guys, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this review, and if you did, don't forget to like, subscribe if you're someone new, hit the notification icon if you want to stay up to date for future reviews like this, and feel free to also hit the hype button on mobile. It really helps out a lot. Not only that, but you can also follow my various socials, and I have a special Patreon page if you like ad-free videos, as well as also extra goodies yourself. But with that said, special thanks to my patrons, and Mad Kaiser, out.